All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for our Compass video series. I'm Kelly Mass, I'm the Director of Family Services at Compass and also a local pastor. Compass is a local nonprofit organization based in Kearney, Nebraska. We are a Christ-centered foster care, family services, and counseling program, and we serve about 27 counties of Nebraska. And we wanted to create this video series to just help people understand the child welfare system, foster care, adoption, and what it takes to make strong families, safe children, and how our communities can get involved with that. Today, I've got with us former Kearney Mayor and recently elected Nebraska State Senator Stan Clouse. And just to tell you a little bit about him, Stan has served as the Mayor of Kearney for 18 years, from 2006 to 2024. And is a 40-plus year employee of the Nebraska Public Power District. In addition to his official public service, Stan is heavily involved in the Kearney and Buffalo County community, including involvement in Rotary International, Leadership Kearney, Teammates, Make-A-Wish, Junior Achievement, and more. And Stan is also a member at New Life Church in Kearney and newly elected to the Nebraska unicameral. So, Stan, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. You know, it's a privilege to be here and just have a conversation, just talk about the things that's happened in our community for, the 20 plus years that I've been on the city council. And prior to that, serving as in Shelton, Nebraska as an elected official, and, growing up in Nebraska in North Platte, born in North Platte, grew up in the Brady area. So I'm a Nebraska guy, born and raised here, Nebraska values. And, the timing was right with term limits, with Senator Lowe being term limited. And I had a choice to either run for city council again or run for the state legislature. Okay. And I opted to run for the state legislature, knowing that if I lost, I would not have anything to fall back on because you can't run for two positions. And it was something I've always really been in awe. Anyone that's ever been down to the state capitol, I think when they walk into that building, it's just like, it's just a different feel. Yeah. And I always felt that would be the ultimate way that I could serve my state. Not only my community, my family, my friends, but the state. And that's, setting laws, helping direct the finance of the state, working with other elected officials across the state to deal with the issues that impact our state and make our state what I consider one of the best states in the country to live. And I would say, over the years, there's no place I'd rather live than in the United States, and no place in the United States other than Kearney, Nebraska. So, you get to do that. You live your life here. You get to serve your state after I've had a long time service of public service for the city of Kearney. So just a next step for me. There's no political aspirations. It's like, here's the opportunity. If the opportunity wasn't there, I would have just retired and rode off into the sunset. There is no next step. This is, I take it day by day, and sure. And I know that in life, people have a tendency to get caught up on their goals and their vision, and it's so locked in, and it can change tomorrow. And I've always felt that there's a guiding hand guiding me through my life, dealing with the ups and downs that I've had, all of the tribulations, and everybody has them. Yeah. Everybody's got their story. And so I just believe that guiding hand is just saying, okay, stand here. Is this the last stop? I don't know. I don't know what tomorrow holds. Sure. I always tell people, if they've been around me any time at all, I say, be humble, because you're only as good as your next doctor's appointment. And that's good. People with cancer, there's so many things that can happen. Yeah. And just be humble, because you are a gift here, and your gift is to help people be the best they can be and help support your community, your families, your church, or whatever. Sure. You need to be giving of others. And some people, they have a tendency to go off on the other end and think it's all about them. And I just believe in humility and serving others. Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm glad you ran, and we're going to miss you as Kearney Mayor. But and people are going to watch this at various times. But I think just yesterday, or maybe the day before, Jonathan Nicola, longtime city council member, was named as the new mayor.
That's exciting.
The replacement, Jonathan, I remember talking to Jonathan years ago, and he had aspirations. He grew up here, and he's always wanted to be in that role. And as we transitioned, and Kearney's had a great history of good leaders in our community. And I tell people, 20 years ago, they give us a chance. So Bruce Lear, myself, others on the council, and community leaders. It was time to make that turnover from the old guard to the young guard. Well, guess what? Now it's time for us as the old guard to turn it over to the young guard, and they're ready. We have new city management, city managers, young city staff, and our goal or our job for the last number of years is to make sure that culture that we have in Kearney, working together, being successful, working hard. And our job was to make sure that culture was established in those that are following us. And so when it was our time to step away, Kearney doesn't skip a beat. And I feel good about Jonathan. He's been on the council a long time. Tammy Moore, Randy Bushcutter, good experience. We've got Alex Stratman and Kurt Smith, one of the new council members. Bruce Lear and I both were about the same time, 21 years. So there's a lot of years of experience on the council that stepped down, but it was time to make that transition.
Yeah, leaving it in good hands.
Yes,
it's good. Tell us a little bit about what led you to get your start in politics, in government, that arena of public service. Like, how'd you get your start, and what did that look like?
I've always been in a leadership role. I always attribute it to being a firstborn. Firstborn, you have that responsibility. Your parents are like, okay, you got to take care of your little brothers and sisters, set a good example for them. And then I just have always had this fundamental belief that it's your job to make your community the best community that it is, that it can be. And I think a lot of that started when a young man in North Platte, getting involved in adult softball leagues and community theater, just different things in North Platte. And it was something that, you need to step up. You need to promote your community. You need to make it the best that it can be. And some of it is, I've always been in a leadership role because I'd rather be one that makes the decisions than have somebody else make them and tell me that I got to live to it. Gotcha. So that's just kind of how I'm wired in that sense. It's like, I'd rather be a part of that decision-making process. And some people don't like that. Some people, it's the lead follower, get out of the way. That old, the old axiom. But I've always felt, okay, it's okay if you don't want to lead, but follow. If that's right. But don't ride the fence. Don't be one of those people that just creates problems all the time. So you got leaders and followers, and it takes everything. So it's however you're wired. And I've always been wired to get involved in the community and just do things. And for some reason, I've always fell into things like, okay, I'll try it. I've never done it. Some stuff that other people didn't want to do. Okay, I'll give it a shot and see what we can do. Yeah. And that's just my mental makeup. But it really started growing up in a small town of Brady. That's where I grew up and went to school in Brady Public Schools. And in a small town environment, you're in everything. And I attribute that upbringing, that you're in choir, you're in band, you're in home ec, you're in science. Yeah, I mean, you do everything. You're in the play. You're just too small. So if you have a public school, you got to do everything. And you wear a lot of different hats. You help out in your community, as opposed to a larger school, and there's benefits to that. I never had a international language class. We didn't have that. We didn't have a French teacher or German teacher. So some of those things you miss out from a larger school that has those, if that's really the direction you want to go. But I attribute small schools to saying in small communities, everybody pulls together and everybody works together. And of course then this adult life, just getting involved and finding the things that I like to do and just working with my community. And when you do that, people, and I've noticed this as I've gotten older, people know those young folks that they start seeing stepping out and stepping up and taking on additional responsibility. And so in North Platte, I was appointed to the Planning Commission. And so Planning Commission at the time, I didn't realize how valuable a Planning Commission was to a community. Yeah. But I learned that. The Planning Commission, you're looking at the projects, you're looking at the development of your community, your city, And you're really one of the first steps in development in a community, in economic development. And then my career at Nebraska Public Power District, 46 years with MPPD in various roles.
Mm-hmm.
And that gave me I had the opportunity to be in some leadership roles, opportunity to learn a lot of different things through MPPD. And MPPD also gave me the opportunity to move around the state. A lot of people, when they change jobs or change career types, they've got to go to a different company or move to another location. When you have someone like MPPD and other power districts or things like that, or different jobs even with the state of Nebraska that have locations around the state, you have the opportunity to get promotions and move into other areas and do different things, but you're still within your company.
Yeah.
And so what that does is that gives you the stability. It gives you your retirement fund, all those things, your investments, but it gives you some stability. And then, of course, at a company like Nebraska Public Power District, we have a lot of management training, a lot of leadership training, a lot of those types of things. So I had the opportunity to move to Shelton. And then when I moved to Shelton to manage billing offices in Ravenna, Shelton, Ravenna, and Loop City, and then I had multiple towns that it was my responsibility, along with my colleagues at MPPD, to make sure that these communities, that they're happy with the job that we were doing, providing power, rates, things of that nature. So I had about 19 towns that one time I was responsible for maintaining that presence and working with our local managers and our linemen and the different ones in those towns. So that gave me the opportunity to go to a lot of village board meetings, whether it's Greeley or Woolback or Ord, all the way down to Bladen and Kennesaw and Doniphan, and then the Kearneys of the world, some of the bigger ones. And then I got elected to the Shelton Village Board, so I found out what life was like on a village board. And on a village board, it's much different than the Kearney City Council, because the village board, you have a very limited staff on the city. So if there's a barking dog or a complaint on streets or whatever, it was on you to try and get that taken care of. And so I did that for a year or two, and then relocated to Kearney with MPPD and was appointed to the Board of Adjustments, which is a different aspect of city government. And then I ran for election in Kearney, and I lost my first race on the city council. But then we had a vacancy, and so then they appointed me. And so it was only like 5-6 months after the election. So we just had the election, so then I got appointed to the Kearney City Council. Then I ran, and the rest is history, as they say. I've been on it ever since. But my experience in municipal government is one that's, I think, is fairly unique. Not a lot of elected officials have served on village boards, planning commissions, boards of adjustments. So I've seen the workings of city government firsthand, up close and personal.
Yeah.
And I think that gave me a leg up to talk about, well, this is how municipal government operates. And in Kearney, you didn't have to worry about the barking dogs because you had people. You call city manager, they call their staff, and they take care of it. So, and
as you had to link in that experience in those small villages, as well as a bigger town like Kearney, that's going to be some valuable.
And understanding the different challenges from a small community, and even in Nebraska, Shelton's not a small community. I mean, they're a village, they're classified as a village, but we have a lot smaller communities. Yeah. And then the fifth largest economy in the community in the state in Kearney. So you have that breadth. And the other thing that it does is I get to be all over the state. I was in the Leadership Nebraska class, first class. I thought, well, that could be fun. They were throwing it out there, and I thought, well, I'll try it. And while other people are thinking about it, we're doing it. And that was a great experience. You make connections all across the state. I think they're probably class 15 or 16, and you get people in Lincoln and Omaha, and you learn about the state. And of course, with MPPD, I traveled the state to different meetings, and it gave me a good feel of what our state's about.
Yeah.
And another thing that I've had the opportunity working with personally with 3 different governors, and I was appointed to the Natural Resources Commission. And part of that was looking at natural resources, how we manage natural resources, how we manage our water resources, which is so important.
Yeah.
And I've been on that commission for a number of years. So you really understand the issues affecting agriculture, affecting municipal water supply, all those types of things, recreation. And it can start, I tell people, you look at Nebraska as this big, wonderful, beautiful state that's hundreds of miles from one corner to the other corner. And you go in the panhandle, you might get 15, 16 inches of rain a year. Okay, so what's your water issues? Drought, things of that nature. And then you go down to Fall City, down at the other end, 50, 60 inches of rain. So what are they looking at? Flood control. And then all across, well, what do you do with nitrates and municipal water supplies, and how do you know where our water table's at, and how do we protect the Ogallala aquifer? How do we meet requirements of the Republican River contract with compact with Colorado and Kansas? Now we're looking at legislatively at the Perkins County Canal project with state of Colorado. So understanding those water issues and the watersheds and the natural resource districts, how you work closely with those, I think that will be an advantage as I'm in the legislature. And we'll see.
Yeah, let me ask you this. So we want to spend some time kind of get to know you, and then we're going to dive into just some ideas about how public policy, local policy affects families. But just one last question sort of in this arena, getting to know you. I know that you're a man of faith. And I'm curious, I think other people are probably curious too, as well, as how does that part of your life interact with being in the political world, being in local government? How do you stay true to your own personal values and character, while also you have the mandate to uphold sort of the will of the people? And sometimes those things may be at odds, probably not vastly, but at times I'm sure they probably do. How does that faith part of your life interact with the governmental part of your life, political part of your life?
Well, first of all, at this stage in life, I've been through the ups and downs. I've done things that I'm not proud of. I'm just over my life cycle. But you reach a point in your life, hopefully people do that, where you find a church, you find where your faith is at, and then you find a good place. And I found that by being part of men's groups, by being part of life groups within our church, I found the church I have, and then of course being recently married for the last couple of years, a great marriage, great partner in life. And the reason I say that is she had lost her husband, and I lost my wife, and we managed. And again, it's that guiding hand. We knew each other as couples, and next thing you know, a few years later, we're reconnected, and our best partner I could ask for. But it's built on faith. It's built on, going to church, going to the life groups, doing the right things. And so that regard is, I've been in a good place. Some of the things that I'm not proud of, you're just like, you know what, you got to own it. There's things in life that you've done that you're not proud of.
Yeah, we all have.
You learn from it. You're like, I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. I'm proud of that fact. But there's a lot of things that I need to work on, and I know that. So now when you get into the political realm, like you mentioned, there can be some challenges. And so you really have to think about that. And I've spoken to youth groups a couple different times wearing the mayor's hat, give them a welcome. And I will cite this as the FBLA group, Future Business Leaders of America. And there's like 1,800, 1,900 kids from 7th grade all the way to seniors. And I told them, I said, and this was, I don't know if it was too controversial, but because I heard positive comments afterwards, but as I welcomed them, I said, you guys, it's Nebraska, and you kids, you're going to be going through all kinds of leadership classes. You're going to be learning a lot of things. But everything you need to know about leadership is found in Scripture. How you treat people, what are the 10 Commandments, what are leadership roles, service above self. All those types of things are right there at your disposal. And you need to look at that, you need to read it, you need to put it into operation and perspective on how you live your life. So my whole career in public service is, okay, what's the right thing to do? Now, the thing of it is, everybody has a different view of what the right thing is, because it can get distorted. But it's like, okay, well, how would I tell my mom I made this decision? What was the basis for this decision? And then when I decided to run for the legislature, it was one that I sat down with my pastor, we had coffee, and I said, okay, I need to talk to you about abortion. tell me where you're at, because abortion's a hot button. People are all over the board on this.
Sure.
And so I've got to make a decision, and I've got to have a basis for making that decision. So help me with this. And so we talked it over, and I said, then let's talk about transgender and sports and place, restrooms and locker rooms and
Yeah.
things like that, sports and spaces. And I said, so I need some guidance. And then of course you pray on it. You just say, hey, God help me make this decision. I don't know what I'm going to encounter, those types of things, but I just make a decision and move forward. But you never, and people a lot of times they criticize politicians for being wishy-washy. Well, a lot of times you don't want to make a commitment until you know that you've heard both sides of the story. And it's in Scripture, listen to understand.
Yeah.
And that was on my campaign thing. I like to listen to understand, so I know both sides of the issues. I know, at least I can make an intelligent decision, as intelligent as I can be, but an intelligent decision based on listening to understand where you're at. And so a couple years ago, I made that comment at FBLA. Last year I was there, and I told them, I said, okay, here's the deal, guys. I said, where we are at as a society is not good. And I said, my generation's kind of screwing this thing up. And I said, so we're going to do our part to fix it, but your generation's going to have to fix it. And I said, the first thing that's got to happen is get hate out of your vocabulary.
Yeah.
I said, just because you disagree doesn't mean you hate.
Yeah, or it doesn't mean that person's against, against our country or our state or anything like that. Yeah.
So I said, get that word out of your vocabulary and learn how to work together, learn how to resolve issues, and understand that you're going to have differences of opinions. And there are some things that you don't compromise on, but there are a lot of things you can work together on. And I also, I've shared with a lot of people, so you got the proverbial far right and the far left, and where's everybody else at? And I said, when you look at politics and you look at Democrats and Republicans and independents, what do people want? The basic things that they want: safe schools, safe communities, low taxes, good roads, nice parks, quality of life things, fire protection, police. I said, those are the fundamental things that we all want. I said, we get caught up on these other things that are peripheral or social issues instead of focusing on these are the core things we got to make sure that we're taking care of.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm seeing maybe that shift is coming back to that. I hope it is.
A little more focused on the essentials.
Yeah, let's. Now you got to deal with some of those other issues. I get that. When I mentioned sports and spaces, obviously that's a social issue, but it needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And abortion, that's social, but it needs to be addressed. And so, how do you do that? And how do you base a decision on where you're going to be? I know in my mind, where I'm at with it, and I'm anti-abortion, but I also know that it's not my call. So that female, her family, her creator, her doctor, they make that call. But at what point, you don't make it easy for abortion. That's where I'm at. You don't make it easy, but and you put some safeguards in there. You put some of those things. So that's where I'm at with it. Mm-hmm. I've talked to people that have said, Stan, I love you, I'll support you, but don't tell me what to do with my body.
Yeah.
So you get that. And also in politics, you have to be sensitive to what can happen. And if you start saying, okay, there's going to be zero abortion, and you start pushing it, there's going to be enough people that are going to push back that you're going to lose everything you've gained up until that point. Mm-hmm. If you had 12 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever it is, you're going to lose that because people will vote against it just because they didn't want you to tell them what to do. Doesn't mean they're for it. So you got to be sensitive on how things ebb and flow and say, okay, I know that if I get to this point, I'm going to save a lot of babies' lives.
Yeah.
And I also know that we need to love these people, help them make a good informed decision, and that's where like Compass and Collage and some of those folks come in, give them that education, okay? If there's nothing wrong and the baby's healthy and you just want to work, you had a good time the night before or whatever, there's a whole different way to look at that as opposed to someone, are you going to lose, is this mom risking having this child very early in her pregnancy and leaving 5 other kids? And that's a decision that's tough.
Yeah.
Now, where do I need to inject myself into that? No, I'm saying, look, we're going to love you. A decision, here's what we think. Make an informed decision. And I've also told people too that if you get to that level, then you better put millions away to take care of those kids because that mom said she didn't want it. So if you're going to make her have it, then you got to take care of those kids because just
Right.
like where you guys come in, what are you seeing on foster care? What do you see as kids getting involved into the system and we just lose track of them? So if you're going to make a rule over here, then you better be prepared to take care of those
Right.
kids the rest of their life.
Right. If we're going to make those really hard moral decisions, we've got to, as community members, put our money where our mouth is,
Yep.
put our energy and our time where our mouth is, to then support those mothers, support those children, give them the resources they need to be healthy and succeed.
Yep.
That's something that I think that's easily forgotten. It's easy to make sort of the black and white moral decision, and we need to make those decisions. But then we also have to recognize the things that follow on that. Like I said, putting our money where our mouth is and our time and our energies, those kinds of things. So
Absolutely, because we complain about welfare stuff, but yet that's what it's there for, to take care of those in need.
yeah. And how then also can we invest our lives into maybe parents that are struggling, parents that didn't have the example maybe that I had or somebody else had, so that we can lift them up and help them to be a healthy family. Well, Stan, I shared with you kind of before we sat down that really the thesis I'm coming at this with is that when we as communities can make children safer, when we make families stronger and healthier, that I think that makes for thriving communities. I think there's been lots of research out there about that. I think anecdotally, we kind of all understand that healthy families make for strong and thriving communities, help to boost our local economies versus putting some societal strains on our economies. Let me just start by asking, to what degree have you seen that bear out during your time in community leadership?
Yeah, I would start by saying that I had the opportunity when we first started the teammates program in Kearney to be one of the first teammate mentors, and that gave me the opportunity to really see what some of those kids are faced with,
Yeah.
and their life at home can be totally different, and that, you know, the Habitat for Humanity homes that they build, you know, the things we do there, that is great for the kids. And my first wife, who passed away in 2010, was a social worker. And I tell people, she always told me, never think so highly of your community that you forget about the social issues.
Yeah.
Because she and other social workers in the community see that. You know, so while we're working on, well, what's the next greatest, best thing coming into Kearney? What can we do to invest in our community? You know, what's the new business starting up? We have all those issues that other people are taking care of. And so I'm always have that in the back of my mind. Okay, where am I missing? What are we missing here? And there's been several things that have been undertaken over the last number of years. One of them just maybe some urban cleanup. You know, for the longest time, lived in the southeast part of town. It was, you know, that was looked down upon. But we started paving the streets. We started putting in decent water and sewer systems. All of a sudden, everybody takes pride in what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, just being into the schools with the Junior Achievement Program, where you go into these classes and you see where these kids are at and you see what they're dealing with. And I've also had the opportunity to go to Head Start and read to some of these preschoolers.
Yeah, that's neat.
And, you know, I love those kids, but you can tell some of those kids, their home life is different.
Yeah.
It's different than what I experienced, what you experienced. And to me, that gives me a sense of balance to say, okay, we need to make sure that we're looking after our kids.
Let me just say there, I love what your late wife said. As a social worker myself, it is so easy, especially, you know, if your home life or if your family is stable and secure. Maybe that's the kind of family of origin that you grew up in. It's easy to not realize that there's families right in our backyard that are really struggling.
Yep.
Of course, when we walk out our front doors, we all, you know, we don't want to show the hardest part of our lives to the community around us when kids go to school, when parents go to work. But man, there are families that are just really, really struggling, kids that they maybe don't know where their next meal is coming from, or parents that are really struggling with substance abuse or something like that. And but it's easy for the community to not see it.
Yeah.
And so I think us as a community really opening our eyes, maybe even stepping out of our own sort of life path a little bit to involve ourselves in our neighbors' lives is really critical, because
Just pay attention to what's going on.
yeah, in such a great community as Kearney, it's easy to forget that there are families that are really struggling.
And several things that our community does. Number one, our police department, they have their cards. They're in the schools. They want to let our kids know that, hey, we're your friends. If you get in trouble, give us a call.
Good.
Of course, the law enforcement always see things that most of us can't imagine.
Sure.
They see the worst of things. But they do that, but yet they try to make a difference in these kids' lives. And we've done some things with, with our city manager, Mike Morgan, and city planning staff, where we put splash parks in neighborhoods.
Yeah.
That's a great thing for the kids. It gives them something to do. And then, if they can't, if you think about it, we have one big pool and one small pool at Central, or Centennial. And so we've done things with that. We've done things with parks. We've had multiple parks and great parks that are around the community. So just things that are positive to keep positive reinforcement in these kids. The time of year with Christmas coming up and the Goodfellows and the things that Goodfellows, it's amazing to see the community turnout to deliver gifts on Christmas morning. You never know what you're going to encounter. But there are literally hundreds of people taking gifts around our community to those that may not be as fortunate as others. And things like that it's constant in our community, and I love it.
Yeah. How do you encourage? I really like that. How do you? And I've experienced Kearney to be a generous community, and I think that probably also speaks to Nebraskans as well. How do you encourage that kind of character of generosity within a community? Is there anything that city leaders can do, or is it kind of leading the people that are already like that?
I think the people are already like that, and it's usually when they come to us and they want to do something, not get in the way, not say no. Now, obviously, you have parameters and guidelines. And
sure.
You can't shut off every block in town to have a block party to get your neighbors, engaged with one another and stuff like that. But if they want to shut down the downtown, or look at Yanni Park at Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
Those are great family things. And, with their park and recs, we have so many great programs in partnership with the YMCA. We've got a great YMCA. If you look around our community and see all these things that support our youth and and they have programs, so if people can't afford it, they have scholarships. Okay, just apply. We want your kids to come here. So there's a lot of things that are out there. I always feel too that our church community is very strong, and I look around. I've probably been in 80% of the churches just over my years. Go and get invited to, maybe it's a scouting thing at the church, or church service or funerals or whatever, just over the years. And I am so impressed with the pastoral care and the number of churches that we have in this community, and I feel really good that piece, they're doing great jobs. And of course, each church, they take care of their congregation. A lot of them have their own food pantries. They have their own closets if people need clothes. So a lot of the churches are just doing different things. And
there's a unique unity amongst the churches in the Kearney area as well, which I think is wonderful, and it really is unique.
Yeah,
it's great.
And the pastors, you're right. In fact, we dealt with that during COVID.
Yeah.
I've actually met with a group of the pastors and, talking about, well, what am I seeing? What do they need to be doing? And basically I said, it's up to you as a church. I'm not going to tell you what you need to be doing, but here's what we're seeing. And, everybody looks back on it now and they have all the answers. Well, at the time we were going through that, it wasn't that easy.
That's true.
And would we have changed some things? Yeah, absolutely we would have. But that's hindsight's 2020.
Yeah, it's easy to critique looking back, but I remember thinking, boy, I don't envy the job of community leaders and the decisions they had to make during that time. But I remember some of those conversations you had with churches and the community churches saying, we have rights to worship. However, how can we, Mayor, how can we help the city as well? And where's the balance and all that? That's good.
And just the things that we do to keep our kids engaged. We got a great children's museum. I just look around and think we do a good job with our kids, but there are always those that are struggling. Their family life isn't great. And so how do we reach those kids? And we were talking about what are we seeing in the schools and, some of the behavioral things. I kind of feel bad now that our schools aren't just about educating. Our schools have turned into social workers and counselors and things like that. And I'm like, what has happened to our society? Then I'm thinking, well, maybe when I was growing up, it was there. We just didn't know it or we ignored it. So, there's just so many things when you look at what's being done with the mental health and, the CHI with the mental health facility where if kids are struggling, guess what? Here's a place that's open, kind of like an urgent care, only for mental health. So if kids are contemplating suicide or if the stress gets too much, here's a place to go and get some counseling and it's open 24/7 or they have counselors that they can talk to. And Kearney's one of the few communities that has that.
Yeah.
Now I'm hoping that it'll expand, but we have way too many suicides, way too many pressures on our kids, and why are we putting that type of pressure on them?
Yeah.
And then what is causing that pressure? Is it social media? Is it peer pressure? Is it what's doing that? And of course, as somebody that's getting up there in the senior class, I'm look back at it and say, well, it wasn't like that when we were growing up, and maybe it was. Maybe there were different issues that we dealt with back then, and we just got to make sure we stay on top of it and give our kids the best care and give them hugs, let them know they're loved, and but that can be challenging with the kids, and we've got a lot of great programs and things, but there are a lot of needs out there.
Yeah. Anything. I think that's true that schools nowadays, beyond just education, teaching the facts and getting higher test scores, that there's a lot of social work going on. And of course, our Kearney public schools, most of the public school programs, they've got social workers, they've got counselors there. I think to some degree, I think the needs are higher. I think to some degree we're more aware of it because of the readily available information that we have, and then also that schools are just getting more involved in addressing some of those needs as well. Whereas before, families had to go elsewhere, and some of those resources are now closer to kids. Anything that you would say that our communities could do to come around our schools and help meet some of those needs, maybe take some of those pressures off of teachers, school social workers, school administrators?
Yeah, I think just being there and supporting them and giving them an out, where they can communicate, they have places to go, things that just give them an out and just tell them thanks, for what they do. And of course, sometimes, you can be cynical, because there's times I catch myself doing that, saying, I talked to a kid, the other day. I said, well, how you doing? He goes, I have anxiety. And I'm like, I'm sitting there going, who would ever tell me that? Growing up, my dad would have said, I'll give you something to be anxious about, that type of deal. It was, so have we gotten soft? I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
But how do you know, it's like, what's going on with what we're teaching our kids? And, is that a crutch? Well, when I talk to a lot of the counselors, no, there's a small percentage that they use that as a crutch, but by and large, there are issues that we need to deal with.
Yeah.
So as a community leader and now being in the legislature, when we look at the social issues, when we look at Department of Health and Human Services, are we doing the right things? Are we putting our money in the right places? Those types of things we got to look at because society is different than when I was growing up. Just like, a four-door car with no seat belts and no airbags. Now look what we have.
Sure.
It's just different. Society is different.
So in my field, kind of the social work and child welfare world, the places that we have to intervene, we talk about intervention after a child has been abused or neglected, after parents have really fallen down the hole of substance abuse, those kinds of things. We have to intervene as a society, and those interventions are very, very expensive. And so as a field and really as a nation, the focus is shifting to prevention. It has been for quite some time, recognizing that if we can get involved, if we can provide some education, if we can provide some help, some support, some relief, whatever it might be for that, that first of all and foremost, children are going to be safer, parents are going to be more successful, families are going to stay together, and down the list a little ways, but still true, it's way, way cheaper as a society. So maybe as a community leader, as a mayor, or maybe in state government, what are some of the levers that we can pull that you've been thinking about, or to help with that prevention, make families stronger and kids safer before some of those tragedies happen?
In the hierarchy, I've expressed this to some folks over time. In the hierarchy of raising a child, city government's at the bottom. At the top,
I'd agree.
Family, church, schools. People are with those kids all the time. But as a political entity, subdivision, what we can do? Some of the biggest stresses on families are the economy. Not enough money. Well, you're working hard. You're just not bringing enough in to make ends meet, and that causes a lot of stress on families. So what are we doing for taxes? What are we doing for affordable housing, and how you define that? And so what are some of the things that we're doing that we're supposed to be providing that we can maybe relieve some of that stress? So how do we control our taxes so that people have more disposable income, which creates happier families because they get to do more fun things and things of that nature? And then another piece to that too is, what are we doing that we can offer up that doesn't cost? You can go to the library. One of the libraries, we don't have a library card fee. The library's open. A lot of the park things, we don't charge for a lot of those things. And some of it we do because there's pretty extensive cost to some of them. But for the most part, what can we do to make their experience living in Kearney better? And as a city, you're kind of limited, but there's things, is just trying to help families financially so that they're not spending every dime they make just to survive, and that they can have a good quality of life and have some disposable income. And I see a lot of those things happening in our community, but at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do too, because of inflationary pressures and things like that.
Sure. Again, I kind of shared that my thesis, and I think we all know it to be true, that strong and healthy families really are the bedrock of what makes communities thrive. And I don't just mean that everybody has to be starting a family to be a successful community member, but I mean strong families really output healthy adults and community participants, economic participants, all of those things. So if that's the case, that healthy families maybe should be really a primary goal of communities, of states, whereas city and state government do we sometimes maybe get our measures of success off? Like where is it easy to shift focus to other measures of success and forget that maybe bedrock factor of strong families? Where have you seen that easy to shift focus?
Well, I think, and I don't want to put the onus on schools, but a lot of times you can tell that through grades. If kids don't have good, healthy families at home, then their study habits aren't as good. There are a lot of other things going on in those kids' mind. So, looking at how are we supporting our schools? How are we making sure that their education is the best it can be? And then again, to keep healthy families, you got to have things that can keep them together, and that's community activities. Community events. Bring families together, do things. And I think that builds a lot of good, healthy families and gets them appreciating where they're at. And it gets them to say, I like living in this community. It's a good, clean community. I'll do my part. Oh, and by the way, if you want to help out, in the spring at Yannick Park, we're planting flowers. You want to take the kids out and plant flowers, and just enjoy the park setting. You can go fishing at Yannick Park. You can do different things. Out in Cotton Mill, there's some different things we can do. So a lot of times the stress is by it can help alleviate that or reduce it by some of the recreational type things that you do, and things that just kind of gives you the opportunity to chill. Obviously I'm in a lot of parades, whether you're campaigning or just every year, just being part of your community responsibility, and just seeing the streets lined with people having a good time.
Yeah.
They like listening to the bands. They like seeing, the different floats and different things going on in your community. So there are just so many community events that you can do that get people out there. I know the police department, when they do their, I forget what they call it, the blue thing in the park, where they have all of the fire and police and emergency, and they have some of the different church groups and other organizations get together, and they have food and just fun for the kids, bounce houses, and they can bring families, can bring their kids out there and just have a good time and just kind of chill and relax, and that subconsciously builds a healthy family. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh yeah, we can survive, we can be together for a time. Yeah. And then there's just so many things in the community. If you keep your community doing those fun things that are family oriented, we opted not to have a casino in our community. That was a conscious decision that community leaders that we made. We were at risk at that because our other option was building a sportsplex for the kids' sports and things like that. But as it's turning out, it's under construction, and it'll be an amazing facility for sports. And that frees up the Patriot Park, the things that we've done for baseball, Little League, and softball, and the things that we have. We've got state-of-the-art facilities that parents can enjoy, kids can enjoy. The little rafting down the North Channel of the river. We call it the Whitewater Group, but it's really not whitewater, it's just a raft. But that is, if anybody's ever done it, it's very serene. It's pretty safe. And people like it. So you can just go and just relax, and I think that's part of the challenge with families is the stress that families are under. And if you can help do some things to reduce that stress and just give them a break, and
bring community members together where you're building relationships and connections. That's good.
And I think that's a key play to that, because healthy communities, you can tell when you go around the state which communities are healthy, which ones are struggling, what your community involvement is, and the other thing is how many business or communities are the business sector free with their money, offering up things, doing things that. Hey, one thing I've always appreciated about Kearney is in some communities, it's like, well, I'm not going to invest in this, or I'm not going to throw my money here because you're going to make money. And so I'm going to keep my money and I'm going to keep it tight. Well, then your community gets, our community, that's what I loved about Kearney is, well, if we're going to invest in something, I may make money, you may make money this time, I'll make money next time, but at the end of the day, we're all going to be making money, we're all going to be, that's an economic development process that a lot of communities don't have.
Lifting ourselves up together, kind of. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And I tell people that, people say, well, how does Kearney do it? I said, well, we play hard, but we work hard so we can play hard.
Yeah, that's good. One thing that I shared with you that I've noticed in my time working in child welfare in central Nebraska is I think that there's a fairly unique kind of cooperation between law enforcement, the court system, service providers like Compass, and there's many others, therapeutic community, the schools. There's just a real cooperation. And in my experience, there's a lot of wonderful professionals that really, really care about helping parents be successful, keeping families together whenever possible, and it's not always possible. But I think that there's a really unique cooperation. It seems like our Kearney Police Department and Buffalo County our Sheriff's Department, they understand some of those factors that families are dealing with, and they're working with the schools. And what do you think has contributed to that level of cooperation and work towards strong families?
Well, I think it's understanding how you can help one another. And speaking for and I shouldn't probably speak for them, but for the Kearney Police Department, they know that if they have a good working relationship with you, then they know who they can call upon if they have an issue in the middle of the night And then on the flip side of that is they know that if you have an issue, you can call them and they'll be right there. So it's this partnership, and I look at it. We have resource officers in the schools. Our PD and Buffalo County Sheriff, they meet with the school administration all the time. What do we need? How do we work things out? It's just people working together to understand what you offer. Well, this is what I have to offer, so hey, this will work. And just having the people that are experts in one area, not trying to be experts in another. And it's like, no, this is where that's best suited, so here's what I'm going to hand off. And not doing it for self, being, I'm trying to think.
Just self-promotion or whatever.
Yeah, self-promotion or, building yourself up. It's like, no, this is an issue. What's the best way to resolve this? And you're the best qualified for this. Next time if you need help. And so I see that a lot, because, the AFAN, we had a lot with, can't think of it now. The housing, it's right at the tip of my tongue. Out there by the fairgrounds, though.
Habitat for Humanity?
No.
Is it Raft that you're talking about?
Well, Raft House is another one, but oh gosh, man, it took my tongue. But anyway, places where you take people. God, I can't think. It's for those that it's a halfway house thing.
Crossroads.
Crossroads. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So scratch all that, you come back. We see that with agencies like Crossroads.
Mm-hmm.
They come in. The community. Some communities didn't want them here. They and finally when you see that, we have needs in our community, and they can provide that need. And so our law enforcement folks know if they find somebody that's struggling, they can take them to Crossroads.
Yeah.
Crossroads has some very strong rules and regulations, just like the Raft House, the Safe Center, all those.
Yeah.
And they know that by working together, they can provide better services for their clients. And the law enforcement knows that, we have a place that we can take these folks, and we know that they'll be well taken care of. So that cooperation is huge.
Yeah.
And I think it's just understanding where you can go, who's best suited for that. It's just all around the community that we see that.
Yeah.
And it's not like the PD just doesn't sit in their cop cars or sit down in their police station. They're out in the community.
Sure.
And our community just gets so involved, whether it's chamber events, whether it's community events, and you meet people and you learn what's going on. And our leadership Kearney folks, they learn all this stuff. And as they come up into leadership roles, like, oh yeah, I remember going there. I remember what they do. And that's the purpose of all those programs, to understand your community better.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. On a kind of related note, there's been a lot of talk kind of nationwide about skilled mental health professionals responding to crises that clearly have a mental health component, maybe in lieu of law enforcement going out or in conjunction with law enforcement coming out. I know that you helped to implement a program like this in the Kearney area. What can you tell us just about that need?
Yeah.
What you've seen, what the impact of something like that's been, where there are further needs.
Yeah, I don't know how much I helped with it. I just kind of stood out of the way while they did it, but
You saw it happen.
Yeah, it happened, and having mental health professionals go on calls, the type of call that they need to be there,
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having an officer trying to deal with a situation that could escalate. They have somebody that's trained on how to de-escalate. Now, we have officers trained in de-escalation.
They're all working on that stuff.
Yeah. But some of this is mental health, and we had an officer that we gave him a Purple Heart the other night, but he got shot in the leg when somebody was having some mental health issues,
Mm-hmm.
And two officers were there. And so they want to have people that can take care of it too. And I think that is a great strategy to have those mental health practitioners with them as they make some of these calls. Shifting
in a direction that might seem a little self-serving, I really don't mean it to be that.
Yeah.
What are, in Nebraska, there's a lot of great nonprofit organizations that are helping families, that are trying to make kids safer, that are helping to teach parents skills they might need. What are some of the gaps that you've seen that maybe city and state government can't fill, that nonprofit organizations fill? And then maybe how can city and state governments help to foster a healthy community of nonprofit organizations?
Yeah, I think the challenge you have in local government, state government, anything at that level, because you're primarily funded by tax dollars. So obviously you have watchdogs, and they're sitting there, well, how come these people are getting something I'm not? Or what's your role? Your role is the basic services, so, fire, police, streets, water, sewer, public safety, those types of things. So when you start expanding that, then it always becomes a question of how far do you go? And everything I just talked about was city, but the same thing holds true on the state. Roads, bridges, and funding the state colleges and, the university, things of that nature. So education piece of it. So when you start going further than that, then you have watchdogs and you have a lot of people saying, you're getting outside your lane, stay in your lane. This is what you're supposed to do. So then the question becomes, how do you support those that supplement what we do, which are nonprofits? Okay, what can we do to help nonprofits? So there are a lot of little things that we can do. For example, if you got a nonprofit that wants to have some type of fundraiser and they want to block off the street, okay, don't sit there and say, well, here's our rule. It says you can't do that. Yeah. It's like, okay, these people are providing good service for us. Or, sometimes you just say, well, we might have a free day at the pool or something like that, But nonprofits play a huge role. And when you look at the Give Where You Live that just recently happened with the city of Kearney, and you look at the list of nonprofits and almost $2 million raised this year, it's incredible because those nonprofits.
For those that don't know, that's Kearney area. Puts on their own. It's almost like a Giving Tuesday, but it's specifically sort of put forth by Kearney area Community Foundation, Chamber of Commerce really champions
it. Branches out to Shelton and Gibbon and some of the other nonprofits in the I should say the region, but I think it's more in this general area.
Sure.
But and when you look at the money that's given, that comes back to us tenfold because it's just the return that people see the value of that. Of what that brings to our community. And, there's, you look at something like the Arch, it's a educational facility. It's great for the kids. But yet there's things that the city has a small role in that and part of the management of it, but we get compensated for it. So when you look at the value that a nonprofit like the Arch and what they bring to the table, and they have their Easter stuff, they have their Halloween things, just all kinds of stuff for the kids to do. Yeah. So, and that just is rampant around the city. So the challenge we always have is, okay, what are we doing here for the nonprofits? And I'll give you a classic example that I struggled with early on until, like I tell people, well, this is where I'm at, now get me to where you want me to be. And it was the funding for the animal shelter. Okay. And I've never had pets. I can't really say I'm a pet lover, but I was like, we're giving them $100,000 a year. And I'm going back several years ago. I said, we're going to give them $100,000 a year when I have the Safe Center and I have all these other things. I said, that doesn't register right with me. But then we started taking a look at it. It's like, well, when some communities have animal or dog pounds, you used to call them the dog pounds, that if you pick up a stray, this is where you take it. And you look at the financing of it, and other communities our size, that can be several $100,000 just to manage a facility like that. So I'm thinking, okay, now I got to back off because that's providing assistance for a nonprofit, but yet it's saving you and me as a taxpayer money in the long run. So there's things like that we work on, but you have to justify it, and you have to be able to stand in front of the public and say, here's why we're doing this. Yeah. And what gets in trouble is when governmental entities or tax collecting entities try to do something that doesn't fit the smell test. But nonprofits, there is no question, nonprofits keep our community strong in the services that they do, and that's where too much is given, much is expected. Yeah. And we live that when we give the $2 million a year to all the nonprofits to help keep them going. So nonprofits are critical to the success of our community and our state.
That's wonderful. Well, Stan, I really appreciate it. Again, coming out of a busy campaign season and right here in the middle of the holidays when we're filming this, I really appreciate you taking some time to just kind of share with us your experiences and thoughts on local and state government. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And, born and raised in Nebraska, I love this state. I love everything that about where we're at. And it's just my honor to represent our city, represent our constituents down in Lincoln. And I hope I do a good job. And at the end of the day, the job well done. We've heard that in scripture. Job well done. That's your goal.
Yeah. Well, we wish you well in the legislature. Say God bless on that journey. And for those of you joining us and watching this Compass video series, hope that today has been informative in helping you understand kind of the role that city and state government leadership can help in making families stronger, kids safer, and how our community can get involved in that. So thanks again for watching us.